In this video, we'll look for some land that I can buy to start my small off-grid homestead. In the last video, I explained a little bit about why I'm starting a small homestead and what I'm looking for. So if you haven't watched it, you may want to do so you're up to speed. I gave some brief criteria for the property I'm looking for, but let's go over it in more detail. I'll divide this up into absolute requirements and then just some strong preferences that may not be a deal breaker. I have a max budget for the land itself of $100,000. One of the goals of this property is to stay out of debt as much as humanly possible. I'm paying cash for the land, so $100,000 is a hard cap. In our target county that we're looking in, which is Wise County, the minimum size of a lot you can build a septic system on is 2 acres. So the property has to be at least 2 acres. I want mature trees on the property and lots of them. You'll see later in the video that many of the lots available are completely cleared, and that doesn't give me any wood for fuel, trees for privacy, or natural beauty to the land. And the property has to be within 1 county of where I currently live to comply with my custody situation in the divorce decree. Now, the things that would be really nice to have, but maybe not a deal breaker, would be a creek running through or a pond on the lot. I'd prefer to stay within about 45 minutes of where I currently live so that I don't have to drive too far to pick up my kids or drop them off at school. I don't want any restrictions on how I use the property at all, but I'll settle for some minor restrictions that still allow me to live off the grid. And I want privacy from my neighbors. In a perfect world, I don't even want to see another house in any direction from where I build my house. So, all that means that I need to filter out HOAs in my search parameters because all HOAs restrict your use of your property. Most property search tools have a filter for that though. I also need to look outside of any city limits because almost all cities and towns also restrict your property usage. I need to avoid any listings that say something like Lot 149 in the address because those are a planned community and are guaranteed to have restrictions. And then I need to get really familiar with how to use the county tools online to search for plats, subdivision information, and restrictive covenants. Okay, now that we have our marching orders, it's time to actually search. There are quite a few tools out there that you can use to find land. Obviously, you can look at the websites that tie into the MLS system. That would be Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, and half a dozen others. But all of those sites have the exact same properties. If you want to find some that are not in the MLS, there are some land search websites out there such as land.com, landwatch.com, and landsearch.com. Those will still have MLS listings in them, but they also have a few others that aren't in the MLS. And finally, there are several websites where you can look for listings that are for sale by the owner, such as forsalebyowner.com, Craigslist, and Facebook Marketplace. Now, my experience on those was pretty painful as they have really bad searching capabilities and most of the listings are misleading or outright scams. But you can find a diamond in the rough sometimes. Okay, so in my years of searching for land, I've come up with a procedure that I use to check it out. But this is just what works for me. I'm sure there are better ways to do it. Let's look at one example. This property meets the price cap, it's 2 acres, and it's in Wise County. So those are the 3 requirements that I can filter for on a website. But I have to visually check for my other requirement, which is mature trees. Now, trust me on this, what you see in the pictures in the listing does not always translate to what the property really looks like. Undeveloped land can sit on the market for years before it sells, and sometimes the realtor is lazy and uses old pictures or even the wrong pictures. So it's always worth taking a few minutes and checking it out before you waste your time driving out there or wasting an agent's time. The first thing that I always do is look up the address on Google Maps. If the land doesn't have an address, usually they'll put in GPS coordinates or some other way to find the property. Now there are some tricks to find it that I won't get into in this video, but just ask the listing agent if you can't find it. Anyway, the map will look like this when you first find it, which isn't helpful. Go to the bottom and click on the satellite image option. Now you'll be able to see the terrain and nearby properties. This is really good to help you weed out properties that have problems, like being right next to a busy highway if you're looking for peace and quiet. Now you can zoom in a little bit, but the image will start to get grainy. This isn't CSI, so you can't zoom in and see license plates or facial hair. And finally, if the road is a county road or a main road that has some traffic, you can look at the street view. Now, I don't know what the criteria is for whether or not Google will record a street view for that road, but sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't. To see it, click the marker in the middle of the road as close to the property as you can. And if you see this at the bottom, then the street view is not available. But if you see this, then you can click on it and see the view of the land from the street. And you can move up and down the road and rotate the screen 360 degrees to see all of the surroundings. I can't tell you how many properties that I decided to pass on because of this handy feature. It saved me a ton of time driving out to look at properties. Just keep in mind that sometimes the street view and the satellite images are a few years old. Now, I didn't intend for this to be a how-to video, and I'm almost through explaining my process, but I do think it might help a few people. Anyway, after I've found the property on Google Maps, if I like what I see so far, I'll look up the property on the county website. Most counties, even rural counties, will have online record searching for property records. For this property, the address that was given in the MLS listing doesn't exist on county records yet. Now, this kind of issue is pretty common on raw land that's been parceled out recently. But if you can find the general area, you can still click on the plats and find helpful info. Again, I won't go into fine detail on this, but you can call the county for help. But one last piece of advice. Make sure you look at the restrictive covenants of the property carefully to make sure you can live with them before you make an offer. Otherwise, you might have to lose your earnest money backing out of a deal when the title company drops a bomb on you later. You can't really homestead or live off the grid if there are too many restrictions. Finally, it's time for the fun part. Once I've identified a property that I like and can't find any problems with it online, I'll drive out to the site and look at it. And after several years of looking, this is the property that I found that I'm going to make an offer on. You can see right away that it's pretty much solid trees. It's 2.1 acres and is a few minutes less than my 45-minute drive time preference. It's off a paved county road and is outside city limits. Now, it does have some minor restrictions, such as 1,800 square feet minimum size of house, but I was going to build much bigger than that anyway. None of the restrictions limit me from doing the things I want to do with the land. I won't have any issues with privacy with this many trees either. The only wish list item it doesn't have is water, but I might dig a pond on the land at some point to remedy that. The asking price is $83,000, but I'm going to offer $75,000 and see what happens. And I'm also going to ask for a survey to be done at the seller's expense. So, wish me luck. In the next episode, we'll see if I'm able to close on this property and look at some financial information. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.